Hi everybody, how are you doing today? Hope you're all really good. So today I'll be making a presentation about the theme of World War II. I did this presentation this morning at school, and it's basically related to a novel we have been reading recently called The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, written by John Boyne, an Irish writer. So I have made a previous video about it during one of my summer videos, so you can go on my channel and watch it if you want. Now, I'll be talking about I'll be summarizing the book and basically explaining what happened uh, right after World War I and how Hitler rose to power and his party became very powerful. And then I'll be quickly summarizing the end of World War II. Let's start, guys. First of all, very quick summary of the book. Many of you might already know it. So basically, the whole story is happening in Berlin, 1942. Bruno, a young boy, returns home from school only to be finding his maid um, packing all his belongings. He asked his parents where they were going, and they told him they would have to move to a new place because of his father's job. Well, he was very sad about it because he had many friends in Berlin and didn't want to leave. And once they arrived at their new house, which was basically in a whole new country for Bruno, in Krakow, Poland, as we can understand from the book and the whole context. Basically, there are no other children to play with, no other houses, so he's really sad. And he decides to go exploring because it's his favorite thing to do. Basically, Bruno discovers a huge fence going all along his house. So he starts walking, and after a few hours of exploring, he ends up meeting a little boy called Shmuel. He is Jew and lives on the other side of the fence. The two boys will go on an adventure together, which will end up being fatal. Now, here's a quote from the book, and let me tell you what I understand from it. Basically, Bruno says, what exactly was the difference? He wondered to himself. And who decided which people wore the striped pajamas and which people wore the uniform? So he's basically wondering who gets to decide who is on my side of the fence or who is on my friend's side of the fence, because as naive as a 9-year-old boy can be, he still clearly understands that his friend is not having fun on the other side of the fence. There is also a movie you can watch. It was directed by Mark Herman in 2008. Now, let's get deep into the topic. Now, let's dive into the pre-math and how Hitler rose to power. Now, World War I ended with the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed, and the Germans owed huge amounts of money. This actually led them into a huge economic crisis. And the only thing people needed to hear at that time of history was someone telling them that that Germany would become glorious as it was during World War I and would regain their power and all their land. Well, that's exactly what Hitler and his propaganda did. They told people that Germany would become great again, they would get all their land back, and that they would actually be able to rule everyone. Now, is this illustrated in the book? Well, this period of German history is not openly discussed in the book, because according to the dates given, Bruno is born in 1934 and Hitler rose to power in 1933. Therefore, the writer mostly focuses on the actual war period, 1939 to 1945. However, in chapter 10, the grandfather of Bruno does actually make a connection to the Great War or else World War One. Now here's a very quick timeline. Hitler was actually not German, he was actually Austrian. He was born in Austria in 1889. He joined the German army in 1914. to fight for Germany in World War One. The war ends in 1918. He joins the German Worker Party (DAP) in 1919. In 1921, he becomes chairman of the party and renames it National Socialist German Workers' Party (NSDAP). That's the German name. In 1923, he stages a failed coup d'etat. Basically, he tries to take over the government but does not manage to. He is released after a 5-month jail sentence. Normally it was much longer, but he got an early release. During his time in prison, he wrote his book called Mein Kampf, in which basically he told all his beliefs and explained the Nazi ideology. And he publishes it in 1925, 1 year after he gets released from prison. His party becomes the second largest in Germany, second most powerful. In 1933, he becomes chancellor. And in 1934, he merged the post of chancellor and president. Now, what exactly was the Nazi ideology? Well, the Nazis thought that they were above everybody else. They were calling themselves the Aryan master race, tall, blonde, blue-haired people. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Okay, so tall, blonde, and blue-eyed people, not blue-haired. Yeah, that was a bit dumb. I'm sorry. Okay, anyways, so that was the Nazi ideology. We are above everybody else. We're better. We're better than the Jews. We're better than the Roma people. We're better than our political opponents, the Soviets, the communists. So basically, they believed that they were above everybody else. Well, that's basically their ideology. They were a mixture of anti-Semitism. Also, they had their own theories and used a lot of propaganda. Now, this picture. Well, does it look familiar? In the background, you can see the Brandenburg Gate, the only gate still standing today in Berlin. And at that time, when somebody was proclaimed chancellor, it was a tradition to pass through the Brandenburg Gate the night they were proclaimed chancellor. And that's exactly what Hitler did. He came through the Brandenburg Gate. And everybody was there to salute him and to praise him. However, a few months after that, on his birthday, they actually retook a picture because the Minister of Propaganda thought that it wasn't organized enough and that there weren't enough people. And if there weren't enough people, that meant that basically their whole propaganda plan would actually be destroyed because basically if there are not enough people, there are not enough supporters of the party. Now let's check out some pictures. Okay, so basically, for a second picture on the top, you can see Hitler sitting on the left, and right next to him on his right is what's his name? Oh yeah, Rudolf Hess. So basically, he was the first commander of the Auschwitz concentration camp. And right next to Rudolf Hess is Hermann Goering, one of the most notorious Nazi leaders. He was the second in command, so basically, if anything happened to Hitler, he would be the one taking over the country and ruling it. He was also the Minister of Aviation. Now, on the bottom, first picture of the bottom, you can see another retake of the picture I just told you about right before. Now, the last two pictures we did not talk about. Fire in the Reichstag. What was it and why did it happen? So basically, the Reichstag is the White House of the Germans, so it's located in Berlin. Now, why did this actually happen? Why did this fire actually happen? And who lit up the Reichstag? Basically, the Nazis said that the communists, or the Soviets, which means their huge political opponents, had lit up the fire. They told that lie while it was clear that the Nazis had actually lit up this fire in the Reichstag. They told this lie because they needed the reason to be able to gather all the Soviets and all the communists to imprison them. That's exactly why they lit up this fire. Now you can see the newspaper of that time, basically where all the propaganda was being, or where all well, basically where people could read all the propaganda um, Hitler would be telling them. Now here's a very interesting picture. You can see a synagogue, a Jewish synagogue, and outside are German people, not even trying to go in to help people. That's how influential propaganda could be. And as many of you know, uh, one of the main enemies of the Germans, well, it was the Jewish people. Do you know why? Because at that time, they had a lot, but like a lot of money, and Germany was in an economic crisis. Therefore, somebody had to be blamed, and obviously the Germans wouldn't blame themselves. They were superior to everybody else, as I told you. So this is exactly what they did to the Jewish people. They destroyed their they destroyed their shops with anti-Jewish graffiti. They wrote Jewish, 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 drew the Star of David outside of their shops. They even imprisoned Jews and had them, and those who weren't imprisoned, they were obliged to actually put up a paper saying that be careful, enter at your own risk. I am Jewish. That's that's really, I have no words, guys. Now let's talk about what concentration camps were. Basically, concentration camps were not established to exterminate were not established to exterminate people at first. That's why they're called concentration camps. They were concentrating all their enemies, therefore everybody who didn't go along with the Nazis, who didn't agree with their ideology. So basically that was Jews, LGBTQ, disabled individuals, the Roma people, and yeah, as I told you, Jews, obviously. Now, later on, they did create some extermination camps, such as Auschwitz II, or else called Birkenau. You can see here the gate of Auschwitz I, which was a concentration camp and not an extermination one. Please do not mix that up. It's not the same thing. Now, how are you considered Jew? Well, according to the Nazis, you were Jew if, well, you had 3 or more grandparents born in a Jewish community. And if you were considered Jew by law, then this status passed to your children and grandchildren. So basically, if one in your family was Jew, everybody was considered Jew. No matter if you didn't believe, no matter if you were atheist, no matter what, you were considered Jew. Now, about the Roma people. Did you know that in Birkenau only more than 23,000 Roma people were exterminated? In total, it is estimated that more than 500,000 Roma people were exterminated in Nazi concentration camps. They considered them an inferior race, just like many others. Now, they also murdered Soviet prisoners of war. Why was that? Because even though Soviets were the other side of the same coin, basically, the Nazis were the one extremist party and the communists the other. They did not have the exact same ideology, but both of them were really fond of their countries, were really proud of their countries, had a lot of national pride, therefore. But basically, they were huge enemies. That's why they were fighting. Now, just so you get an idea of how many Jews were deported only to Auschwitz, and actually it was not only the German Jews, it was Jews from Hungary, Poland, France, the Netherlands, Greece, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Belgium, Germany and Austria, obviously, Yugoslavia, Italy, and Norway. Approximately 34,000 Jewish individuals were transferred from other concentration camps to Auschwitz to get killed. Now, just so you understand, look at this picture. It is actual footage from the Auschwitz Museum in Krakow, Poland. These are the Jews from Thessaloniki, July 1942. They were taken with trains and they were brought to Poland to be exterminated. Now, this is actually the people preparing for selection. Families were divided. Men able to do forced labor were kept in horrible conditions, obviously minimally fed, and they actually where they slept was absolutely. I have no words, guys. I cannot explain. I'll show you a video in a little bit. Now you can see here, famous gate in the back in the third picture down. Famous gate of the Birkenau camp. You can see the railway station and everybody waiting to be selected. Who would go to the gas chambers and who would survive for a little bit. Normally, children and women, as well as disabled people and very old ones, were immediately sent for extermination. They had no time to waste. The Nazis actually took all their belongings, their suitcases, their glasses, their shoes, their clothes, and even cutlery and pots. They actually took everything that seemed useful to rebuild the Third Reich. Now, here are the horrible conditions where they slept at. Just watch this video, please. You see how it was. It looked like it's a crime against humanity. 5 people were sleeping on each of these beds. Let's see, 5 people, no mattress, nothing, guys. It was winters in Poland are absolutely freezing. They slept there with the striped pyjamas, as Bruno calls them. 5 people next to each other, no heating, no mattresses, sleeping on pure wood. Just imagine being there in such a harsh winter. Now, here's another video. All these are prosthetic legs, prosthetic hands, crutches, and parts of wheelchairs. I told you the Nazis took everything that could seem useful to actually be able to rebuild the third and most powerful Reich. You see how horrid these images are. Crutches everywhere, prosthetic legs, prosthetic hands. Can you imagine? Well, for those who have read the book, you know that Bruno ended up going under the fences, even though they were electrified. Now, do you think that this is possible? Well, we'll talk about it in a little bit. Let me just show you some more images about the brutality of the extermination. You can see here on the first image, the blue wall, cans of Cyclone B, which were basically which Cyclone B was basically a pesticide used to kill rats at that time. Now, it was used to kill victims in the gas chambers. They basically poured that in. And you can see here on the top image the so-called crematoria. These were ovens where they burned the dead corpses. And now, who took the bodies out of the gas chambers and burned them in the crematoria? Well, guess what? The Jews themselves. They did not do that because they wanted to. They did that because they knew that they would have better living conditions. They were fed way better than anybody else, treated way better. But do not get confused. They would get killed the same way after quite some time. Never forget that no Jew was meant to survive. No opponent to the Nazi party was meant to survive. Now let's watch another video about how the crematoria and the gas chambers look like. This is a gas chamber in Auschwitz. Let's watch the video. Former gas chamber and crematorium. Getting in there. It's really sad, guys, just to think that there are people who try to deny that the Holocaust even ever happened. They actually try to deny all the facts, all the historical evidence. Look at this. That's it. We're getting in there. All the stains on the walls, all the black stains, they're basically stains from the gas, from all the gas. Here's where they took off their clothes, and they told them that they would go for a shower, but they eventually never came out of there. We're getting close to the crematorium, about to see the ovens where they burn the dead corpses. Just look at the horrid images. These were literally ovens where they would burn people. Just imagine living that. That was it. Now let's come back to our wire story. So, do you think that Bruno could actually go under electrified wires? Well, maybe if it was only one row. Definitely, but look at this. 2 rows of electrified wires plus a wooden wall. Do you think that Bruno could have jumped over the wall and gone and crawled under 2 electrified fences? Like, I really do not think that would actually be possible. Look at this video. Shmuel jumping over the fences. No way, guys. So basically, this part of the book is complete fiction. It's just there so that you could actually understand how horrid the place was. Even though, as the author says, that book isn't for young children, and you need to actually know some things about the Holocaust to really understand what the lines mean. Now, also, there were watchtowers everywhere. So basically, even if you did manage to get out of the camp, somehow the guards would catch you and shoot you. Look at this. This is actually how Auschwitz looks like. It's their actual pictures. And now here, that kind of looks like the description of Bruno's house, doesn't it? It's kind of close to the camp, and basically, I guess that That is where the commander of Auschwitz lived, therefore Rudolf Hess. Now, let's talk about the aftermath. Basically, Germany was so basically the German Empire, or else the Third Reich, was taken over by the Allied powers who won the war. So their Allied powers were the US, the Soviets, the French, and the British, UK. So Germany was cut into four. France got apart, UK, the Soviets, and the US accordingly. Now, the capital was Berlin. And what did they do? Well, they cut Berlin in half, but guess what? Berlin was in the heart of the Soviet sector, and that's why the Soviets built a wall all around the um, British, the American, and the French sector in Berlin. Now, another thing is that on May 14, 1948, the head of the Jewish Agency proclaimed the establishment of the State of Israel when the British control over Palestine expired. Now, most of the Jews who survived traveled to the Middle East and took the land that used to belong to Palestine. Thank you very much, guys. Just one last thing. There is a movie out in the cinemas right now. It's called Nuremberg. It's about the first trial of Nuremberg. There were 13 in total. That's where some of the most notorious Nazi commanders, just like the Mister wearing the blue suit. Do you remember who he is? He's Hermann Goering, the Minister of Aviation and second in command in the Third Reich. So basically, it's about their trial, and many of them actually committed suicide before even being brought to justice. Those that were brought to justice committed suicide the night right before their execution. Now, last thing, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that's why I made this video for you guys, just so you can stay informed about the topic. If you want to learn more, you can go watch the film. It's really good quality. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you on the next one. Love you. Bye.